First up in the press review is Gambia Daily. Gambia-Senegal Economic Investment Forum ends with promise of stronger partnership. PM Sonko's Banjul engagement culminates in tete-a-tete with Barrow. Tourism Minister engages members of the U.S. Black Congressional Caucus. Minister Juf points to stereotyping as challenge in the fight against unemployment. And Gambia's LDC initiative for effective adaptation and resilience reports validated. The front cover of The Point reads this morning, government to mobilize $150 million for post-TRRC prosecution. APP Sobeya Congress, Esafal hints, change is coming. Ex-students surprised Nusrat's longest-serving teacher with $53,000. GAA launches new flight service to connect Banjul and Lagos, or should it be GIA? Lawmakers approve $30 million loan to widen Bertil Harding Highway. And in its Good Morning, Mr. President editorial, The Point calls for reparations for Jammeh victims to be fast-tracked. Now, Foraya's front page. Justice Minister to introduce the Constitutional Promulgation Bill 2024. Farmers in Fas Chaho demand cash payment for their groundnuts, not queue money. Government allows Gach Global to use part of Salaji Forest. UTG Faculty Staff Association ends sit-down strike. And Gambia and Senegal renew bilateral ties. Let's take a look at the front cover of The Voice now. Essa Fall alleges government plunders public funds at detriment of Gambians. NPP welcomes Supreme Court judgment. 69 suspected perpetrators to be tried in 2025, pledges Minister Jallo. Dabo vows to continue striving for youths. SK Jaite applauds Gambia-Senegal Trade and Investment Forum. Craft market sales suffer despite tourism boom. GMA raises awareness of blue economy opportunities. And Sukuta Week 2024 kicks off with focus on empowering youth. Finally, the Standard, Gambia needs $150 million to implement TRRC recommendations and activities. Fall vows to go after thieves of government money if elected president. GCAA explains acute power outage at airport that caused flight diversions to Dakar. NPP says its chieftain once saw Dabo as demigod. Dabo calls on Kombonkas to teach Barrow a political lesson. President Barrow inspects Port of Banjul and highlights key infrastructure improvements. UTG Staff Association ends 3-week strike. And author Yaya Silla organizes 3rd Annual Amir Book Award. And that was your first look at Monday's newspaper front pages. Our thanks to Foraya, The Standard, The Voice, The Point, and Gambia Daily.
Did you know service plots are now available at Baki? Welcome to Baki, Taft City's 4th residential estate.
Yes, service plots available at Baki with 3 years interest-free payment plan with a minimum deposit of only $94,000, and it will come with fence plot, water reticulation, electricity, solar street lights, and bituminized internal roads. Are you ready to build your dream home for yourself?
Call us now.
Looking for an establishment where value for money and unrivaled services with admirable turnaround time is guaranteed? The Port of Banjul is the perfect place for you. A vital gateway for trade offering connections to numerous global destinations. With improved infrastructure combined with a flexible tariff, the Port of Banjul remains a vital node in maritime trade. Along with its dedicated workforce, efficient service delivery, technology-inspired innovation, and an impressive record in handling all type of cargo. The Port of Banjul is also widely acknowledged as one of the safest ports on the continent with no history of piracy. As a major player in the region's maritime trade, accounting for 90% of all imports and exports, we are more than just a transit point, but a vital cog in the global trade sphere. Come experience a hassle-free fast customs clearance inspired by our simplified trade documentation procedures, safe and efficient cargo and vessel handling. The Port of Banjul offers prompt, reliable and value for money service, and customer satisfaction is guaranteed.
So if you'd like to advertise or make an announcement on the program, call and speak to Mr. Jibril Jassi on 699-0107 or 787-0107 or 924-24-24. Now, some people said they expected it, and it was a long time coming. But to others, it came as a shock when Mai Ahmad Fatty, founder and leader of the Gambia Moral Congress, GMC, announced last week that he was joining President Barrow's ruling coalition. It's not the first time Mai is in a coalition with President Barrow. His GMC was a prominent member of the Jamie-toppling coalition 2016 before its spectacular disintegration midway through Barrow's first term. He tried to stand against Barrow alongside other opposition candidates in 2021, but his bid ran into all sorts of difficulties. And once out of government, he never shied from making his feelings known on controversial governance issues, including the thorny problem of corruption. So why has Mai decided to build bridges between him and his Gambia Muslim High schoolmate? He's my guest this morning, and this and other questions will be answered before he leaves, including any from you. You know our number, 7711599 or 9910959 for texts, and WhatsApp. The number is +22092323333. So get messaging. Mai, thanks for coming and being, embarrassingly punctual.
Thank you very much, Koto. It's a great privilege to be here to have this morning session with one of the Gambia's greatest barracudas in the media. Yeah. I'll say good morning to all of your listeners.
We also have viewers now. We are on YouTube.
Yes, you're obvious. Yes, obviously, yes. Audio visual. I mangle nu ñep mbemo be konton na misilmini bandirabe Gambia fof mare musoni kenyo khurajam qataras alhamdulillah. I greet everybody. Thank you.
No, you haven't greeted everybody. You haven't greeted the Manjagos and the Jolas and the Bainunkas and the Seriers and the Monswankas.
I admit I have a limitation there, but I have no doubts that you'll get me cross over that bridge. Thank you.
So, Mai, why did you do it?
Well, democracy is all about responding to the aspirations of your membership, particularly in a partisan democracy. In our own case, we care so much about the nation, but at this stage, our priority goes to our membership. Well, Mr. Gomez, this thing has been in the works for some time. It started in December 29th, 2023, when we had our National Congress at Farafenni. The GMC representatives, delegates converged at Farafenni for our biannual Congress. And on the final date of the Congress, a resolution was passed for the GMC to work with like minds. In other words, political parties that share some type of ideology, philosophy, or ideas with us. Mm-hmm. And a delegate threw on the table, mm-hmm. If the NPP is ready to work with GMC, mm-hmm. should we go into an alliance with them? This was a specific question that was thrown on the floor. Mm-hmm. And it was debated extensively and passed unanimously. So the Congress adopted a resolution to work with the NPP when the time is appropriate, and two, when the circumstances are such that it is important to be in national interest, we can go into this. So it is a Congress resolution we had implemented on that day, which I had communicated earlier on to the membership of the leadership of the NPP. So we've been working on this for quite a while. It's not just something overnight. It just culminated last week, but really it's been in the works for some time.
What needed ironing out, to take a whole, 12 months, a full year to finally, have the link going?
Well, a political process is a very delicate and a sensitive thing, particularly working with another political party, in particular the ruling party. The concept, most people believe, many people in this country, is that when you go into a political relationship with a ruling party, it is subjective. That is to say, there has to be an innate personal interest on the part of the leadership of that party to work with the ruling party. And so we had to find out where the convergences are between the two parties and how we'll be able to factor in our ideas principally the issue of morality, of sanity in governance, public finance management, procurement issues, human rights, gender equity, interfaith solidarity. All these things are extremely important to us. Inclusive development, in particular, infrastructure. So these are matters that we, over a period of time, we had to take to see really, is it appropriate? Is it in the national interest? Do we have sufficient convergence of ideas that we can implement this? So the implementation process had to be a bit meticulous. And since we were a Congress decision, the NPP has a different procedure. And two political parties with different internal working mechanisms or mechanics, you know, it takes time for us to twerk the various elements and then come down to this. So it was a deliberate process. It was very meticulous. But at the same time, we did not shy away from expressing our views where we felt there was a divergence of ideas with the ruling party. And that is profuse in the media, where we had expressed contrary views.
Well, let's hear them from the horse's mouth. Mai is here. Where were no meetings of mind?
Well, you know, substantially, for example, in the area of specific laws that had to do with the entrenched right of a Gambian to practice his or her faith. Now, if you believe a certain practice is integral or fundamental or core to your religious belief, then that particular element which constitutes part of your core belief really is your right to practice. Because the Constitution talks about the right to religious belief, but also to practice the belief, So I will give one example which is extremely controversial, where we have a position. We had adopted a position in the issue of female circumcision. A very controversial issue.
You don't call it FGM?
No, we call it female circumcision. Okay. And the party adopted a position that is, it should be open for all those who believe that female circumcision is an inevitable, indispensable element of their religious faith, should be permitted to practice it. And those who believe it's not should refrain from it. And those who are sitting on the fence should be permitted to sit on the fence and jump whichever side they want. We believe this is the case because medical evidence is divided on this. There are doctors, medical doctors, professionals who testified in favor of those supporting female circumcision in the Gambia. We've heard them in the public domain. We saw them before the National Assembly.
I interviewed one on this program.
And there are also those medical experts who said it really is very harmful. It's a toxic practice that is barbaric, that should not be permitted. So on both sides of the scale, you have experts supporting and against. So since the nation is divided and is very polemical, and it remains a divisive part of our politics, and a substantial population of the Gambians believe that it is part of their religion. So once that is the case, we believe the Constitution should prevail. Allow everybody who believes it is part of their religion should exercise it. And those who do not, allow it free. So that is one area where we had a significant difference with the state, and I came out vehemently on behalf of the party because that was our party position. So that is just one example. But because we don't have too much time, I cannot delve into more and more.
Mm-hmm. What about the issue of corruption?
Well, corruption is one thing that everybody should be concerned about. Corruption really cut down the life of a country. It stifles development. But you see, corruption is not just about corruption in high places. Peter, the Gambian, my observation, the Gambian has become immune to corruption. True. And the Gambian has become an active participant in corruption. Corruption is everywhere, pervasive throughout our private, community, political and public lives.
And cheerleader of corruption.
Yes, and when you see, and in fact, people who benefit from corruption or corrupt reward of corrupt dividends are highly glorified in society by our own people. If you are in public service, you are a minister, a permanent secretary, a managing director, our society believes that you should have limitless funds. Funds that you do not only have a salary, but you should have limitless money to be able to do all manner of things. You get approaches from churches, you get approaches from mosques, you get approaches from communities, and they are demanding. But you see, what is the most shocking thing about it? It is everywhere. When you want to clear goods, you want to cut corners, you go to customs, you overwhelm the will of a custom officer. You give more money, and you don't want to pay more. Your child is not qualified to go to a particular school. You go there and you bribe the principal to get your child admitted because you want to put up with the Joneses. you are driving a car that is defective or does not have insurance, and you have your family members in your vehicle. A policeman stops you, or a policeman stops you and asks for documentation. To evade the consequences of the law, you tuck a few dollars in notes into his hands. You are teaching the occupants of that car, including your own family members, it is okay to be corrupt. It is okay to encourage corrupt practices. Everywhere we go, when you are on a line, you want to cross the ferry from to a Barrow or so forth, what do? You go and see the gate person or someone else. You tuck money into their hands. You want to cut corners. You want to get into the ferry. Everywhere we go, Gambians are involved in corruption. And when you are in that practice, then you are in a position of influence. You go along with the corrupt practice. So corruption is an issue that is really endemic in Gambian society. And because of our low tolerance for corruption, it has become an accepted practice. So to fight corruption, our society must be willing, and we must look inward. It must start from every Gambian. Every Gambian. If you go to certain offices, it starts from the registry. From the registry, it goes all the way up. From the gate, sometimes, you have to give some money to the gatekeeper, where it is extremely high security zone, and they let you go. Others are outside. You need a passport. You jump the queue. You give some money. But corruption demands a giver and a taker. If there is no giver, there will be no taker. But we are very happy to be giving, and the other side of Gambians are very happy to be receiving. So it is a national conspiracy to be corrupt in this country. And our tolerance level is very, very low for corruption. So it is not just in government, it's in society. Public, in private sector, in the public sector, even in civil society, those who are making the greatest of noises. There's a lot of evidence of corruption in the civil in the civil society organizations. A lot of corruption, terrible corruption in many of these civil society organizations, including their leaderships, their managers, and so forth. So it is everywhere. Unless we are serious as a country to battle corruption and change our attitude, we will remain like this. But you see, when you talk about corruption, Peter, let me just round up on this.
Sure.
The 2023 Transparency International Index for Corruption, the United States, amazingly 69. They score 69 in the world, meaning they are the 69th most corrupt country in the world. Now, if you go to United Kingdom, 2023, because 2024 is not yet out, United Kingdom is 71.
Oh, wow.
71 most corrupt country in the world is the United Kingdom.
Worse than the U.S.
And France also is 71. When you go to Germany, Germany is 78th most corrupt country in the world. And the Gambia is, of course, for 2020 is 98. But look at all of the regulatory mechanism, the enforcement of the laws, and the period of political maturity in the United Kingdom. That goes back to since antiquity. United States had independence over 200 years. They have institutions, they have all mechanisms, all regulatory mechanisms. They are still the 69th most corrupt country in the world. France, these are the countries that are subjecting us to accountability. They 71. So compare 71 and 98. And you look at the Gambia's relative history, our weak institutions, weak enforcement of laws. I mean, non-implementation of NAO recommendations and regulations. You look at the illiteracy rate. You look at the people's lack of political consciousness. If we are at 98, France is at 71, Germany is at 78, you can see, relatively, according to our history, I think we are making, not acceptable, and it's not under any circumstances, but I think, much can be done, but corruption is as old as human nature.
Well, that's one thing they will agree with you on, that corruption is as old as, humankind. So how, if you help Barrow win the 2026 presidential election and he brings you back into government, will you help him fight corruption? Because so far, he has, or his government has demonstrated an inability, if not unwillingness, to deal with corruption.
Well, I will agree that there are corrupt practices everywhere. In institutions, the National Audit Office had indicated several concerns about public finance management, accountability, procurement irregularities. There's no doubt about it. These are matters of public record. You cannot deride them. You cannot say they do not exist. And certainly investigation is required in a lot of them. And that is why the NAO is only answerable to the National Assembly, and they report to the National Assembly. So we need a more robust approach towards curbing and fighting corruption, no doubt about that. But I wouldn't say entirely that the Barrow administration does not care about corruption. I would not agree with you on that. Why? Because when you talk about investigation, you are talking about the ability and the capacity of the investigating authorities.
My words were inability or unwillingness.
Yes, well, unwillingness may not be the issue, but there is insufficient capacity at the level of the investigatory authorities. For example, we rely more on...
for instance,
I'll give an example.
An anti-corruption law was passed. Where's the commission to implement that law?
I give you an example. The example is the Gambia police force. The capacity to investigate complex and sophisticated corruption, particularly serious accounting, the capacity is not there. I mean, you don't have
that capacity.
You don't have, yes, exactly. But you see, it's a structural problem. Corruption and lack of capacity has been there since the First Republic. We know, you and I have witnessed the First Republic, and I was a student, a very active student activist at the time. Corruption has always been there. It has been at the time of Yahya Jammeh, and corruption is still here. It will come after Barrow as well. It will remain here. But I said the capacity to investigate thoroughly does not exist at the Gambia Police Force. We need to build the capacity. But it takes more than just a few years to build the capacity of investigative authorities.
Have we started?
I will tell you, because I was one time Minister of Interior. I know the capacity, the depth of capacity at the Gambia Police Force. The human resource requirement has changed tremendously. But investigations in a manner that is expected of a modern democracy, those infrastructure do not exist at the Gambia Police Force today. So what we have is that we need to build up their capacity to be able to do forensic investigation of finances so that they know exactly where to look for, what to look for. They need to understand the laws, the regulations governing parastatals, for example. They need to know procurement laws and a number of issues. All these things there's capacity gap. So I'm not saying that this is an excuse, but this may be responsible for the inability to prosecute corruption cases. And the second part is, when you talk about corruption, you need to have proof beyond reasonable doubt, because it is a criminal offense. You cannot just accuse people and bring them before a court of law without sufficient evidence.
And this is where proper investigation comes in. And this is why you could move people from the National Audit Office, for instance, who know what to look for when they're trying to establish corruption.
Exactly. So what you do is each has a statutory role. The National Audit Office, they are the alpha and omega when it comes to auditing of public finances. And so that is their statutory role. But they are not an investigative body. They can support and help, but that is by virtue of recommendations. You have parliamentary committees.
Create positions in the police force that are as attractive, if not even more attractive, and then they will be encouraged, just as we now see bank managers moving to NAWEC because of the high wages that NAWEC are paying, despite not providing the service they're supposed to be providing.
I agree with you entirely. I agree with you. Like I indicated, these are all structural issues. We inherited, or let's say the coalition government, now President Barrow, inherited an administrative system, a bureaucracy, a civil service that was highly incompetent, highly politicized, and destroyed. Now, building the capacity, particularly at the level of police force, and public accountability during the 22 years dictatorship was zero. Nobody dare investigate any authority except the order come from State House. So the NAO has continually issued reports, but investigation has been at zero level. The police force was destroyed. The Gambia police force as an institution was sidelined throughout. It was the armed forces that took center stage, even in law enforcement. So their capacity was dead.
Well, we are still seeing them in certain aspects of law enforcement, the army.
Having inherited that kind of law enforcement agency, need a lot of work to raise their ability to do the kind of sophisticated and complex technical issues we are arrogating to them. Okay. So I admit, yes, more needs to be done. I condemn corruption. I believe everybody should rise up against corruption, and government should do more, but we need to build the capacity, institutional and the individual capacity of those involved in investigation of corruption, plus parliamentary oversight.
Okay. So what's the government getting right? I mean, that has encouraged you to throw your lot in with President Barrow again?
Well, a number of them. One, I would talking about the political environment in terms of freedom of expression, the democracy, the human rights. I think everybody will admit, whatever your views on the Barrow administration may be, the Gambia has no political prisoners today. There is no political prisoner in Gambian prisons. No political prisoner has been arrested and brought before a court of law, convicted and sent to prison. It does not exist. One of very few countries in Africa. There is a tremendous amount of tolerance, political tolerance. There's a mushrooming of media houses everywhere and media institutions, including online. And people are unrestrained in what they say, sometimes negative, sometimes to the point of constituting national security risk in terms of what people say and do sometimes. And all these things are there. It could have been different. But President Barrow has been very tolerant. He's allowed everybody to make your moves, to join whichever political party, to form whatever political you want. So we have, in terms of that, we have achieved, we have sustained the democratic element. That is one part. And that requires a leader who has a thick skin, who understands that it is important for people to differ from what you believe, even though he expresses his disgust sometimes at what the opposition may say against him. But he allows them to say it. And he may have manifested in a way that you may not agree with, but the fact of the matter is people are free to say what they want and to do what they want. That is one. I think that is leadership, and it has to be rewarded or acknowledged. Number two, GMC manifesto, top priority is infrastructure. Number two is infrastructure, and number three is infrastructure. Let me talk about infrastructure here. One, you talk about access to education, because education, there are three things we are looking at. We are looking at access, we're looking at quality, we're looking at affordability. Now, you can say affordability is an element of access, because if you make it unduly difficult, you restrict access. But these are the three things. There is no government in the world that has achieved all three at one time, simultaneously, all at one go. Name me one country in the world that has achieved access, quality, and affordability all one time at once, wholesale. Not a single government in the world. So we do have this bottleneck at the level of access. President Barrow has built hundreds of thousand classrooms all over the country, primary schools, secondary schools. So the physical infrastructure has to be there first, so that you allow access. People in the remotest part of the countries, people, boys of families and children who walk like 4 or 5 miles to go to school. You know, in some instances, there is bushes between villages to those schools. Some of those schools now go to attend school in their own communities, in their own villages. And hundreds of them all over the country. So it has substantially improved access to education, and that is the first step. When you eliminate or when you ameliorate the issue of access, then you can focus on quality and affordability. So the next policy level is no longer focusing only on accessibility, but how do you improve quality? Teacher training, quality of learning, access to educational materials. These are all policy issues that are coming next. So when people talk about failures at the secondary school level and others, it is okay, but we must deal with one thing at a time. Enable access, improve the quality, and enhance the affordability, including tertiary education. So we also have Professor Gomez. He's doing a fabulous job. He's my star minister. Everywhere you go, the Gambia is becoming a different country in terms of higher education. But we still are grappling with issues of quality. It is there. There are structural issues. But first, you expand the access. You work on the quality. Affordability comes in next, depending on the budget and other issues. We go to the healthcare sector. Yes, some hospitals don't even have pharmacy, don't even have paracetamol, I admit. We have problems of procurement. We have insufficient medication. All these are structural issues of development every developing country is confronting, including Gambia. But you have to have access to healthcare. How many primary healthcare clinics we have built? We have a few referrals. But we have expanded in terms of access to primary health care all over the country. And there has been rehabilitation of some. New ones were built in communities we did never had. All these things is about access. When you have access, then you work on your policy to make it better. You cannot have it all at one time. No country, name me any developed country, any industrialized country that has access to education, to quality health care and affordability all built one time. You will not be able to name me a single country in the world. It is a process. Now you talk about roads, infrastructure. Infrastructure is all about development, road network. When you open up the country, the infrastructure, when you open it up, you are opening inclusive development. You are actually confronting poverty at the roots. Because when the roads, people have access to roads, you're talking about easy transportation, you're talking about facilitation of commerce, you're talking about employment generation, you're talking about empowering people to become entrepreneurs, to be self-independent, financial independence. You're talking about encouraging cottage industries. You talk about encouraging professionals like welders, like mechanics, like electricians. You know, all these local professionals are on. Now you want to go to Basse. I have a couple of cases at the Basse High Court. You know, previously it would take you in the Jawara days 2 days to get to Basse. It will take you a day and a half to get there. Jammeh made it a little shorter. Today, I get up. I go all the way down to Basse High Court. I get up here early in the morning. I attend my case at 9 o'clock and I come back here and attend to my clients in the afternoon. That's infrastructure. My village was cut off and many other villages were cut off. Today, go down to my village and many villages in the Gambia. You'll find electricians, you'll find plumbers, you'll find welders, you'll find mechanics, you'll find gardens that are communities that are connected from village gardens to the main highway or to the road. So in a sense, the road infrastructure is improving lives. It is empowering populations. It is creating wealth. It is opening up the country. It is creating integration. It is all sort of things are happening as a result of infrastructure. So infrastructure is high on our table, and we support infrastructure projects, infrastructure development. The good part of all of this is that many of these new infrastructure projects are being funded domestically, domestic mobilization, domestic fund mobilization, responding for some of these things. So you talk about energy, Peter. The Gambia is not just Banjul and environments or major towns or villages or major town settlements. The Gambia is the Gambia everywhere else, including rural communities. Are they not Gambian? Are they not sovereign? Are they not entitled to the dividends of democracy? Should they not have electricity? Rural electrification in the Gambia today has penetrated extensively to many villages and communities that never dreamed to have electricity in their lifetime. Today, villages are connected to electricity grid. From Katong to Koina, go to rural Gambia today. You will find electric bulbs on thatched roofs, on huts. You will find people charging their phones at home now. You will find refrigerators, you will find fans and air conditions. People's living standard livelihoods are changing all over the country because of the expansion of the rural electrification network. And this is all about infrastructure. When you talk about development, you cannot ignore energy.
All right.
And all these things have been done by President Barrow. These are things that needs to be empowered. That is not to say some things are not going wrong. Some things could have been better. But we need to come forward and empower all of these things.
And that's what GMC is
That's what GMC seeks to do.
With this,
and the difference is, Peter, one would have said, well, there are many political parties that rushed to President Barrow at the time of elections. He needed them most at the time.
Okay. All right.
You know,
let me
this is not election time.
A few text messages have arrived for you. Don't mind Mai, he's looking for employment because he cannot survive on his own. Politically, he has no following, and he's not doing well in his legal practice. Good luck to him. How do you respond to that?
Peter, I mean, I'm not going to here to defend myself against personal attacks. I mean, I have gone beyond that. People who believe, who have no ideas, this is what they do. If you have no ideas to put on the table, you attack people personally. I feel sorry for this person. I really feel sorry for him. He doesn't have any ideas to offer. And really, I'm not going to engage people who have nothing to offer.
Yeah, and most of the text messages seem to be, personal in nature. What's your position on the draft constitution?
Well,
that is before the National Assembly.
I've made it very clear that I would have loved the...
It's your first time on Coffee Time, at least on this issue, so
yes,
let's hear it.
I've made it very clear publicly in many places that I'd like to see the original draft through. My party...
What's the original draft?
The draft that came from the Constitutional Review Committee.
The 2020 draft.
That is the draft. Ideally, I would like to see that through. That was what I propagated, that was I advocated for and campaigned. And that remains my position. But you see, in politics, you have to be practical and you have to be pragmatic. Politics is all about the art of negotiation. It does not mean if you don't have everything you want, so you should capsize the vessel. That is wrong. We know that this thing is very controversial. Every political party has a position on this. But for some of us, we can make ours own publicly because we are not a parliamentary party. There are parliamentary parties that are represented in National Assembly. We are not. So whatever we can do would just be outside to influence public opinion. But the people who have, a greater ability to influence this are the parliamentarians, the NAMs. So we know that the main political parties in the National Assembly have differing views on this. And each of them are not willing to compromise. All of these political parties, particularly the ruling party and the opposition, the ruling party is saying one thing, the opposition is saying, if you don't have this, we'll throw it out. And the ruling party is saying, if this is there, we'll throw it out. So what do you do now in a situation like that? You want to throw away the whole thing away? I believe that this draft belongs to the public, the plebiscite. It should go down to Gambians and let the Gambian people determine. Whatever draft we have before the National Assembly today should not be the final draft. It should go, and the Gambian people, the Gambian citizens, the voters should have a right, a say. So if you believe the current draft is not fit for purpose, you wait until the process reaches the public. You go around the country, campaign against it, and tell governments why you think this draft is not fit for purpose. If you believe it is right draft, then you go around the country during a referendum and you campaign for that. That is democracy. So all those who are trying to send people like me to the guillotine for saying we want it wholesale, but now we want to be pragmatic, because I would rather have a constitution than no constitution. And there's no government that has ever achieved everything it wants. There's no opposition that ever achieved everything it wants. So I would urge the National Assembly members to look at the draft critically and allow it to pass. Allow it to pass, you know what I mean? Not pass in the National Assembly, allow it to go to the electorate, to go to a referendum. And at that level of the referendum, the government citizens are sovereign in the electoral booth. They will determine whether they want it or not. And whatever is their verdict at the elections, we should all accept that in good faith. So, but let the people have a chance to say yes or no, because National Assembly members have no right to exercise, the right of a plebiscite, to exercise the right of a referendum. That is for Gambians. So even the act itself should not confine it only to National Assembly members. A new constitution always go to a referendum. And this constitution also is going to a referendum. So let the politicians allow Gambians to decide whether they want the bill, whether they want this constitution or not. And everybody has a chance to go around the country and say what they want.
Do you agree with your learned friend, the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, when he says there was consultation because party leaders like yourself, were consulted in Nigeria, and you were supposed now to have gone back to your respective constituencies and told your constituents what you agreed in Nigeria?
I entirely agree with the Minister of Justice, the Honorable Dawda Jallow. I agree with him entirely. He's quite accurate, very right when he asserted that, in fact, political leaders were consulted. We are throughout in the process. All political parties have been engaged throughout in the Gambia.
So why are some denying?
Well, Peter, they may deny, but the truth of the matter is we were all consulted. We all participated at various sessions that were held by, by Goodluck Jonathan and of course, the other gentleman again, Chambers, Ibn Chambers, all of them. We participated, and we all went to Nigeria. I was there with the leader of the United Democratic Party, GDC. I was there with the Honorable Sirin Jai, who represented at the highest level the Deputy Speaker, the NPP, and all others. We were all in Abuja at the Hilton Hotel, and we had a session. We had sessions. We agreed and we disagreed on some. We agreed in main on most, but then it was just a few of us, myself, Dr. Sisi, and others, who believe that, well, let it go. But there are other political parties, and I will name, for example, one leading political party said, no, we either have this or we don't have anything at all. So
is that the UDP?
Is either we have everything we want.
Is that the UDP?
Either we have everything we want, or we reject it out. Okay. And the other party also, well, if you reject it out, either we have this or nothing happens. So you see,
so that would be the NPP.
So it is a political process, and we should understand that both the UDP and NPP have hundreds of thousands of Gambians behind them. So when they speak on the authority of hundreds of thousands of Gambians. So when they say we do not want it, it is assumed that hundreds of thousands of Gambians say we don't want it. And when NPP says we want it, it is assumed that hundreds of thousands of their supporters are with them on the issue. So this is about democracy. The lone voices who are talking about us if we do not matter, or we do not care, or we don't care much about the country. I mean, interestingly, some of them only found voice after 2016.
True.
Peter, you go down before 2016, Google Mai Fatty, and you will see how long I have been intricately involved in Gambia's political liberation. Since 1984, up to date. I went to prison. I was tortured. There was an attempt on my life, attempted assassination on my life. I almost died. I spent 2 years in hospital.
What year
injuries.
What year was that?
This was 2004, 2007, 2006, 2007, when there was an attempt on my life.
For what?
Well, I was involved in cases. I handled so many human rights cases at the time against the state, and I was a threat professionally. So I'm forced to exile, came back again, fought against the same dictatorship, joined a coalition, and everything else Gambian is open history. So I spoke when it was most dangerous. I was victimized. I was arrested. I was put in prison, in jail. My life, my family's lives were threatened. I came back. I joined UDP in 2011 in a coalition with UDP to fight against Jammeh. Campaign all over the country. Said the most difficult things. Most people would be afraid to take. Most people today who pretend to be human rights activists, so-called civil society activists, were numb. They had no tongue. They had no voice at the time. Peter, you see, when you talk about alliance building in this country, it started in 1960. Who started it? First, it was IBM Gaba Jahampa, the Gambia Muslim Alliance that went into an alliance arrangement together with Reverend Jesse Fife.
We may have time.
And then you have in 1987, you have 1977. Then coming all the way down to 2011, when you had again two different camps, we and UDP calling ourselves United Front, DOI, NRP, and GPDP calling themselves we United Alliance, they United Front. So alliances have been in this country since 1960, before independence. So our alliance with NPP is not new. It started alliance building in this country predated independence.
Okay. Have you met Barrow since you went into alliance again?
Well, I'm not going to talk about meeting or not meeting President Barrow. I mean, that's not the issue. The issue is a matter of principle between two political parties. This is not just between.
We just want to know, have you met yet?
Well, that is not a matter of public consumption. but I can assure you that whenever I need to see the president, he's a very open man. His doors are open. Every Gambian who really has a reason to see President Barrow, and if your reason is accepted by President Barrow's handlers, you will see the president. So it is not my privilege. Of course, he's my friend. When I want to see him, I see him. It's not politics that bind me and Barrow together. We've been friends a long time ago.
You went to school together,
Politics,
didn't you?
no politics. Yes. We went to school together. We are friends. We remain friends. Politics, no politics. And after politics, Barrow and I will continue to be friends. I'm not ashamed of that. This is a very small community. We all have friends everywhere. I do not abandon my friends because they are in power or they are not in power. I do not abandon my friends because they are rich. My all-time friends remain my friends today. President Barrow was my friend some 30, 40 years ago. He's still my friend today.
We have an agreement. You're to leave the studio at 9 o'clock. It's 9 o'clock, Mai.
Thank you very much.
I'm sure you enjoyed this session, but as you say, we have a lot still that we need to talk about, and hopefully we'll get you back here. It's Coffee Time with Peter Gomez, brought to you in association with these partners.